p.m. Pacific. Check out therundownlive.com. Mike P. Kriston H. The Rundown, Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Check out therundownlive.com.
I think the reason I'm really passionate about trying to solve mysteries is I just want to know what the truth is. The thing that really gets me going is getting answers. Do you know what that is? It's across Lorraine. I started material forensics or autopsies on concrete and rock with a company called American Petrographic Services, which I founded in 1990. We've worked on some pretty incredible projects. The one that I'll be remembered for is probably the work on the Pentagon after 9/11. Another project was a murder case where a young female victim was found buried in a shallow grave in the desert outside of Las Vegas, totally encased in concrete. What we were asked to do was to try to determine the age of that concrete so they could establish a time of death. I think they actually made a CSI episode out of it. This new science that I've been trying to develop is called archaeopetrography, which is really a blending of archaeology and forensic geology. Do you see this? What we try to do is to determine the age of man-made surfaces, whether it's an inscription, a petroglyph, or cut or cleaved stone. This is some of the hard science that we can bring to try and answer some of these mysterious questions about who built these structures. I want to know the real history behind these artifacts that in most cases have been dismissed and ignored. To be able to make a final call to say one way or the other is really gratifying. America Unearthed is an amazing opportunity to not only investigate these things, but to have the whole world see us do it. I think in some cases academia has dropped the ball. We need to set the record straight.
What up, guys? We are live here. It is Friday, March the 28th, live here on the Rundown Live, rundownlive.com. Mike Pachesney, Kriston Harris, and we had to give our guest a little intro today. We're going to have Scott Wolter on the show today from America Unearthed. He's a author, host on the History Channel, and, you know, he's actually a scientist. You know, he's actually dating rocks and finding out real information, so it's going to be cool to talk to Scott.
He uses what, forensic geology or forensic geology in the, what's that, petrogeography?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, or archaeopetrography?
Yeah, he had developed an all-new science, and we'll get into all that, but we should probably get into the sponsors and stuff real quick before we bring Scott on.
If you guys haven't had a chance to yet, make sure you guys head on down to therundownlive.com and check out our latest in news and articles. On our website, you'll also be able to find our latest in MP3s to download and YouTube videos. Make sure you guys check that out. Also, if you haven't had a chance to yet, check out our sponsors, Private Internet Access. Private Internet Access allows Mike and I to surf the internet anonymously. Essentially, we can conversate, download our emails, download anything pretty much anonymously. And you'll also be able to avoid things like Reddit bans and video game blacks. $39.95. Covers 5 computers. Not a bad deal. Check that out. Also, if you're looking to get sovereign, check out myheirloomseeds.com. They also have master gardener tools on their website for those master gardeners who want to create a farm. You can do that for as little as $50. You can get 15,000 seeds. And as for as little as $13.50, you can get enough to start a garden, Mike. So we always talk about being sovereign on the show. That's a great way to do it, and also support the Rundown Live. Also, if you guys have a cell phone out there, make sure you guys download the Rundown Live app to your cell phone. We're available on multiple platforms, including Android, iPhone, Amazon.com, Windows 8. We're also on Stitcher and on TuneIn if you want to listen to us live. And, of course, the best way to listen to the Rundown Live is therundownlive.com/live, where we have a chat room where you can chat with us and our guests right in the comfort of your home in front of your computer. So,
Good enough.
I was having a verbal disaster there,
You
Mike.
stumbled to the finish, but you crossed over the line and you succeeded. You may not have been in first, but you finished, so it's all good. But yes, awesome guys. Tons of ways to listen live. Kristan mentioned them all. rundownlive.com/live is the best way if you want to get into the chat and stuff. That being said, we're gonna have Scott on here in a minute. Scott Wolter from the History Channel, America Unearthed. This is going to be interesting because he gets into the New World Order. He gets into Masonic symbolism. He gets into ancient history. He gets into the censorship of the Smithsonian. So, this is going to be an interesting conversation, I think.
Well, what's interesting, Mike? I think that anyone that searches for the truth always leads to those organizations when they want to find out specifics. History is riddled and littered with symbolism and things of that nature, dealing with Freemasonry, the Illuminati, all these different things, the New World Order. We know with the Georgia Guidestones and all the other things that are out there. It's very hard to avoid these things. So you actually have to be pretty naive or oblivious to everything around you to not notice all the symbolism that is out there. So it'll be very interesting. He also does a lot of... Hey, how you doing, Scott? This is Kristan and Michael Pachesny with the Rundown Live.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good. You're on the air, Scott. It's just we were just giving you a brief little introduction, letting the people know a little bit about you. But what were you saying, Kristan, before we...
Well, we were talking about basically how you spend a lot of time studying history and studying these artifacts that actually teach us a very different history. But before we get into all that, Scott, I'd really like to get into who you are, what you do, and how did you get into what you're doing now?
Well, life has its funny twists and turns, doesn't it? I've been working as a forensic geologist for the last 30 years, I guess. It's just about 30 years this year. And for the last 25, I've run a materials forensic laboratory, basically doing autopsies on concrete and rock primarily. And we get into a variety of different kinds of projects. Some of them are a little out of the ordinary. We've looked at everything from murder cases to working on the Pentagon after 9/11.
Which is very interesting.
Oh yeah. No, that was the most amazing thing I think I've ever worked on, and I'm sure that someday when they lay me to rest, that'll probably be the thing that they talk about the most. But about 14 years ago, the Kensington Runestone walked into my lab, and I was asked to study that. And at the time, I didn't know what it was, and I gave them the same speech I give all my customers. I said, I'll be happy to do this work for you, but you got to be prepared. I may come back and give you news you're not going to like, and you're still going to pay me because as an independent, it doesn't matter what the results are. I get paid either way. It's actually a nice gig. But anyway, I did a weathering study, and the weathering of the inscription was old. And, I really didn't think that much about it. And I presented my findings at a archaeology conference, a Midwest Plains Archaeological Conference in November of that year, 2000. And half the people thought it was the greatest thing ever. The other half said, well, it's a fake, don't you know? And I said, well, no, it's not. Didn't you hear what I just said? And it basically just bounced off their foreheads. And then in the days and weeks and months after that, I started to hear some criticism and personal attacks, and people. It had nothing to do with the evidence or anything that I talked about. It was about me, and how come I don't know the paradigm of history? It was bizarre to me at first, but anyway,
one thing
that's what started it.
Yeah, one thing I found is that people use ridicule. It's often because they're not clever enough to defend their own opinion on something. I think ridicule is one of the biggest tools used in science and in history to basically write anything that they can't explain off as a conspiration if it doesn't fit within their square.
Yeah,
or discredit
people,
you.
Right.
Well, they've certainly done that, and let's put it this way: they've tried to. I mean, my work and my background and my history stands for itself. Or speaks for itself. I've had people call me a pseudoscientist, and I'm like, okay, well, I mean, it's like, really?
Is that just because is that just because you're asking questions that are like frowned upon? You know, if you're not studying like mainstream science, you know, all of a sudden you're a pseudoscientist and you're a bad person all of a sudden, you know?
Well, no, I don't think it's that. I mean, mainstream science, that's what I do for a living. I mean, I run a laboratory. We do material forensics. What do you mean I'm not a scientist? I mean, I don't get it. No, here's the problem, guys. The bottom line is this, is that with things like the Runestone, the Tucson lead artifacts, the Back Creek Stone, the Newport Tower, Spirit Pond, Narragansett, it goes on and on. There's a number of things here that are absolutely 100% genuine, but they don't fit the paradigm of history that we've been told. Now, there's a number of issues that are going on here. The reality is the people that are criticizing me are doing what they can do. They're going after me. They're going after my credentials, you know, anything and everything but talking about the artifact and the factual evidence. And here's the part that these guys don't understand. And it's kind of confusing at first, but if you think about it, it's absolutely true. If we have voluminous evidence, which we do, in the case of the Runestone, with the geology, with the language, the runes, the dialect, the grammar, everything they said didn't exist, well, it turns out it did exist. As the geology told me it must if it's real. The veracity of the discovery, I mean, there's facts in every single aspect of this stone that are consistent with authenticity, which means it's real.
Well, hey, Scott, just briefly, for the listeners that don't even know what the Runestone is, can you just give them a brief outline?
Yeah, no
just
problem.
give them a brief
outline. It is, but...
Right. The Kensington Runestone is an artifact that was found in 1898 by a Swedish immigrant farmer who was clearing trees in preparation for farming with his two oldest sons. They tipped over this between 30 to 40-year-old tree, depending on the 12 witnesses that signed written affidavits. Entangled in the root of that tree was this 202-pound stone with a long inscription carved in runes on the stone. And it basically chronicles, well, it's really complex, but basically what I've determined is it's a land claim. I mean, it says right on there, acquisition business or taking up land, and it's at the headwaters of a river system, which was a tradition at the time, and it's absolutely genuine. So that's what the Kensington Runestone is. But anyway, getting back to my point, if it's genuine, and we have all this facts to support the fact that it is, which we do, how can there possibly be factual evidence to support the contrary? It's not possible. It doesn't exist. And so when I say they don't have evidence to support their position, I mean what I say. They don't, because there can't be evidence. If it's genuine, there can't be evidence to support that it's not. And if you look at all the arguments that have ever been made, there's no facts. It's all opinion, speculation, rumor. I've been down every rabbit hole on the Kensington Runestone, and I just wrote a letter to the editor yesterday challenging any opponent, any scholar, anybody, to take me on in a mock trial, either in front of a jury, an arbitrator, a judge. I don't care, because I tell you what, when they start to analyze their case, and if I were them, I would seek some legal advice. They're going to figure out pretty quickly they got nothing. So why are we sitting here having these arguments, people, attacking me, criticizing me? Let's stop already, okay?
And I'm just wondering, what is their goal? What is their goal of, is it just to hide, factual evidence, or what is going on here?
It actually sounds a lot
do you want me to tell you what the problem is? I'll tell you. There's a couple of problems. One is we've got traditions in academia that go back to manifest destiny, where basically there was, and I'm oversimplifying this, of course, but there was a two-part policy. One was the natives are savages. They're subhuman. Therefore, when you demonize somebody by calling them that, you justify genocide and taking their land. This goes on all the time. That's part one. Part two is the myth of Columbus. There was nobody here before Chris, therefore it's ours for the taking. That further justified what we did. So what would happen if anything was found or came forward that stands in the way of that? Well, the simplest thing to do is make it go away, right? Right?
Whitewash the walls, right? You just get rid of it.
And what I was
Of
going
course.
to say before is that we see the same thing in media. When we were telling people about drones, they called us a conspiracy theorist. When we said that the police are getting military vehicles,
these
spying
right.
on us, we're conspiracy theorists. But here all along, we did the investigation. We knew what was happening, and we knew the facts. And now we've actually gotten a lot of credibility because we've been saying that for years. And I think that's something you're going to see, Scott, with what you do, is the more and more these things get tested over the years, the more and more you're going to find out that you were right in these kind of things, especially since you're the best at what you do.
It's a new technology. You developed your own technology as well, right?
Well, yeah, yes and no. And I appreciate the fact that people are, a lot of people are starting to see this. Look, I've testified as an expert witness dozens of times. I know how the process works. I can tell you exactly what's going to happen when they stop screwing around, trying to attack and, not talk about the evidence. They can't talk about the evidence because they don't have any. And in due time, yes, it will all, look, I've been saying for a long time, I think everybody knows it. Sooner or later, the truth bubbles to the surface. Those dirty little secrets always come out, and it will here too. I guarantee you it will. But what many people don't realize is that I'm not the guy that solved the Kensington Runestone. That was done 100 years ago by the first state geologist of Minnesota, an incredible guy by the name of Newton Winchell. He traveled with Custer's army. He was the scientist that went in the Black Hills with Custer. And I joke to people, but it's a true statement. This is how smart Newton Winchell was. The last trip he took with Custer was the one before the Little Bighorn. That's a true story. But he looked at the Kensington Runestone in 1909 and 1910. He was recruited by the Minnesota Historical Society. He went out to the farm. He studied the stone. He did a weathering study. He estimated the weathering to be 500 years old. He talked to Olaf Ullman. He talked to his family, his friends. He talked to people that didn't believe the runestone was real. And he wrote a report. He said it was genuine in December of 1909. Now, when I did my study on the Kensington Runestone, I didn't know about Winchell's study. I knew who Winchell was. He's a giant in my field, but I didn't know that he studied the runestone. When I first found that out, I'd already rendered my conclusion, and I was like, oh, my God, what if he came to a different conclusion? I'm dead. But he didn't. And so the reality is all I've done is independently replicate what he already did. And, newsflash to the archaeologists that have been criticizing me, calling me a pseudoscientist, replication of somebody's previous work is called the scientific method.
Well, yeah.
Well, right. You have to be able to, right. You have to be able to test these things out, and then if it's frowned upon, I mean, it just there's obviously reasons behind all these things, and this is just one example of many things. You do this awesome show for the History Channel. You've written many books on the very topic you're speaking about now, and it's just like where do these things all lead? I know you've talked about things like the New World Order. Do you believe that this is something that really exists? And is it controlling even things like history and American, history in the sense that they don't want you to know certain things? You have Washington, D.C. with all the strange symbolism and things like this. I mean, it's just something interesting we wanted to kind of get into a little bit with you.
Well, do I think there's a New World Order? Yes. Do I think there's secret groups that get together like the Bilderberger Group and make key decisions that dictate how things are going to go generally around the world? Of course. Do I think that's part of what's holding us back? Yes. Yes. And to be quite frank with you guys, one of the problems that we run into is there's a religious component here as well. The bottom line is if they accept the Kensington Runestone, then all of a sudden the Spirit Pond, Narragansett, that creek, all these things I told you, these are the ones that are 100% genuine. The problem is dominoes begin to fall. And they're going to go to places that they don't want to go. One of those places is something called the Talpiot Tomb. Are you familiar with that?
No, this is interesting.
Yeah, that's news to me, right.
Well, when you guys get a chance, I want you to Google Talpiot. In 1980, in the Talpiot neighborhood, which is in southern Jerusalem, they were blasting the hillside in preparation for building condominiums. And they discovered an underground first century tomb. Inside this tomb, they found 10 ossuaries. Do you know what an ossuary is?
Isn't it like a glorified tomb?
It's a limestone box. And back in the first century, there was a particular sect of Jews, Essenic Jews. You ever heard of the Essene? Those are Jesus' people. Okay? They were a very unique sect of Jews that the Orthodox Jews didn't care for at the time. They were very different. They had unique practices. They were very bright. They, well, I don't want to get into the details, but we're talking about Jesus and his followers, Jesus and Mary and their followers. Anyway, inside this tomb, now this particular group of Jews had a unique burial practice where when somebody was passed, only the family could process the body in what they call the antechamber. It's the first room that then leads into another chamber called the burial chamber. They would anoint the body with perfumes and oils. Then they would put it inside the burial crypt on a bench or a shelf. And they would cover it in a shroud and leave it there for 1 to 2 years. The body would decompose. They would come back and collect the bones, and they would put them inside of a limestone box called an ossuary that was just big enough so that the two largest bones in the body, the femurs, would fit inside crossed. Then the skull would go in last. Now you know the origin of the skull and crossbones. Now you know that the skull and crossbones is a symbol of veneration of Jesus and his
Very
followers.
interesting, right? And I could just like see it coming together when you were telling that story. And it's weird that I have never really known that. You know, I never knew that.
Well, and why don't you know that?
That's a good question, Scott.
That's why you're on the show,
yeah,
Scott,
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
well,
and if I didn't know it, I know there's others out there that didn't know. So you know.
Yeah, but anyway, I haven't gotten to the best part. Inside this tomb, they found 10 ossuaries, 6 inscribed with names. Names like, well, you might recognize this one, Jesus, son of Joseph. Another one that says, James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus. Another one that says, Judah, son of Jesus. Another one that says Maria. Another one that says Mariamne Mara. Mariamne is a pet name for Mary Magdalene found in the first Gospel of Philip. Mara is a title of honor, as in Lord, Master, or Queen. And you haven't heard about this? Funny.
Well,
I wonder why.
One of them is a carpenter, right?
Yeah, right. This was discovery. There was a documentary in 2007. Simca Jacobovici and James Tabor. Well, James wasn't on board at that time, but he is now. But Simca's a pretty brave cat. He was the one that brought this out to the world. The Discovery Channel aired the program. It was unbelievable. Of course, Simca then received a firestorm of criticism from the Orthodox Christian community and the Jewish community. And 1 million Christians called in to the advertisers of Discovery Channel and said, we don't want this program ever to be aired again. And they acquiesced. That's part of the reason you don't know about it.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I could see how something like that could easily happen with, you know, advertisement and the way corporations have to work.
Well, we saw it as well with the FEMA camp episode of Jesse Ventura's Conspiracy Theory.
Yeah, they just pulled it, right?
They just pulled it straight out of people's
like
DVR boxes. They actually deleted it from. So.
Right. Well, I sat down with our network, and I basically told the guys that, are my bosses. And I said, hey, guys, here's what I want to do. I think this is important. I think we have the evidence. And it's time this stuff came out. But I looked at them and I said, but you got to be all in. And if you're not all in, then we can't do this. And they said, let's do it. So I give them a lot of credit. And what I'm trying to do is bring good, hard, scientific investigations to this show. I mean, we're also making television. I mean, let's face it, it's entertainment, right? So there's a balance that we're constantly trying to achieve here with entertainment and, good scientific investigations. But if you watch the show, I mean, there's a few times we have a hiccup now and then, but I would say I'm pretty proud of the work that we've done, and I think we're bringing things to light and talking about subjects that haven't been talked about before. And I don't understand why. I have no idea why.
Wasn't it I thought it was a legend that the Knights Templar actually found that tomb many, many years ago, and that's why one of the reasons why the Catholic Church wanted them killed. I don't know if that was just a legend that I heard or if there's any truth to that, because the Knights Templar is, not my specialty.
Of course they found it. They didn't find it. They knew it was there all the time, because the Knights Templar were founded by the bloodline descendants of Jesus and Mary. They are the physical protectors of the bloodline. And the leadership of the Cistercians and the Templars are the bloodline. I mean, when you think about it, the whole idea of the First Crusade was mounted by who? The Knights Templar. And their patron symbol was the Cross of Lorraine, which is a symbol of the bloodline families. It's on the Bat Creek Stone. It's on the Kensington Runestone. It's on the Tucson lead artifacts. They've been coming here for 2,000 years. This was the sanctuary. This was the place that they could come and they knew they'd be safe. And there's another component to this whole story that everybody has missed, which is so obvious right in front of everybody's face. And if you think about it, it makes all the sense in the world. If there were people coming here, Knights Templar, Welsh, Jews, whoever, who do you think they ran into?
Well, obviously, like the Native American types, right?
The Aztecs or whoever else might have migrated.
Hello. Yes, of course. And you think they don't know?
Well, I'm sure it's been, as you prove, it's been written all over the walls. What was that? You were in the Grand Canyon recently. Wasn't it trying to prove that the Egyptians were here?
Well, in that case, and I don't know if I would say we're trying to prove anything. What we're trying to do is find evidence to support something. I mean, when you start proving things, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And you got to be really careful. In fact, on the show, I'm constantly telling the writers, look, proof is definitive. Evidence is supportive. Okay? If we have a certain number of facts here, they don't necessarily prove the case. They support the case. But in my opinion, you don't use the word proof or prove until you have something that's conclusive.
And you build the case with the evidence, right?
That's right. So when you watch the show, I'm very careful with the way I use that terminology. And if people are paying attention, like the archaeologists, and I don't mean to say all the archaeologists, and I want to be fair because there's a hell of a lot of good archaeologists out there and people that are really doing a good job. They're open-minded and they're wonderful. So it's not all of them, but there's plenty of them that are, making this more difficult than it really should be.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. Yeah, let's talk about that. One of the institutes I know a lot of people blame for not having transparency in history is the Smithsonian Institute. And I know that recently you wrote an open letter to them.
Well, no, what happened was I've been fighting, this goes back about 4 or 5 years when I wanted to get access to study the Bat Creek Stone, which is really the one that's going to kill them in the end. Because, and I had to go through the natives to get permission because they denied me. And when I went to the natives, basically the Eastern Band said, give them access, or we're going to ask for all our stuff back. And so they had to acquiesce. And so then, once I did my study and I said it was genuine, I sat down with the natives and they said, what do we do now? I said, well, we go for the bones. The bones that John Emmert, who did the dig for the Smithsonian back in 1889, said he collected. And they said, well, you realize that these are very sacred to our people, and if we get them back, we have to immediately rebury them. And I said to the elders, I said, well, what if he's not one of your guys? And they said, well, then we don't care. and I said, well, there's only one way to find out. So they were on board. And they went through the tribal council. The tribal council, voted unanimously to support the effort. The chief signed the letter. It went off to the Smithsonian. And then I visited the natives again shortly afterwards, and I said, well, you realize what's going to happen, don't you? And they said, what do you mean? I said, they're not going to turn them over. Well, yes, they are. I said, no, they're not. Because they know what we're going to do. And there's no way in hell they're going to allow that. So over the course of the next 6 months, so-and-so is on vacation, such and such moved to another department.
Yeah, it sounds like you're trying to return some at Walmart there.
Well, the final decision came down, we can't find them.
They just lost it. Yep, sounds about right. They just lose
Do you believe?
things.
No. Do you believe that?
No, there's a case here in Wisconsin that was similar. I was following in Beloit, and they found some larger bones, and the Smithsonian was involved. And when you contact the college now, they have no record of it, but the
Just
people
lost
that were
it.
involved
You
were
just lose it.
genuine.
Yeah, you just lose
and
it.
there were real, historical figures involved in, opening effigy mounds and things. So it's very common. It's redundant. I think it's so redundant that it's blatantly obvious that the Smithsonian is not giving us or anyone access to this information. And I don't know why. Why do you think that is, Scott?
Well, I think that they don't want, they don't want things to be known because it's going to open up, it's going to expose them for the liars that they are, and it's going to expose a history that is going to be inconvenient for the church, inconvenient for certain wealthy interests, and it's going to mess things up.
It doesn't fit the narrative, right? When you get these extra details in, and you're finding tombs and things that aren't supposed to be there, you start to question the stories that have been passed down for many years. That governments and things, very powerful organizations have passed down these stories.
Yeah, well, that's true, and of course, there have been a lot of people who made a lot of money based on maintaining the status quo. I personally don't really understand what the problem is. I mean, if Jews were here, if Vikings were here, if Templars, the Templars are the problem. They're the big problem because it all goes back to the bloodline families. It goes back to the truth about Jesus and Mary Magdalene and their ancestors all the way back to Akhenaten and Nefertiti. They were following in a tradition that goes back to Egypt. And you have to understand the Catholic Church is a very powerful entity. It's dying on the vine as we speak. So that's a big part of this. But it's going to happen. There's nothing they can do to stop it. This is not a sustainable way that they're going about doing business. They don't want the truth about what they've done over time to come out. But
and
it's
even
going to come out.
with technology as well, I mean, that's just something you can't suppress forever. I mean, there's going to be ways to figure things out. There's going to be people digging through the rocks. There's going to be people, dating things, figuring things out that, 100, 200, 300 years ago, they never would have even imagined,
Well, actually, if you go back, I think there was a lot more openness and well, it depends on where you are. I mean, there was obviously a lot of suppression of information in Europe as well, but these secret societies have maintained a lot of this information. And when you talk about secret societies, I think a lot of people automatically get a negative connotation, and I don't think that's fair. There are secret groups that are out there that are working to do what I believe are good things. I mean, I asked one of the most prominent, well-known Freemasons in this country, Akram Elias. It didn't make the final cut in our show, but I asked him point blank. I said, "Are you a secret society?" Meaning the Freemasons. He said, "Absolutely we are." And he said, "As long as there's tyranny and oppression in the world, there will always be secret societies." And he's absolutely right. And I appreciated his honesty and candor. And, I'm sure there are side orders associated with Freemasonry that are involved in things that they don't want us to know about, and probably for good reason. But for the most part, the Freemasons I've interacted with, which have been many, many of them, they have been beyond helpful. They've been beyond supportive, because some of this stuff that I'm talking about, some of them already knew.
Well, right, and we've actually had quite a few on the show as well give us some insights, the best they could. And, a lot of them, like you mentioned, are very anti-tyranny and very pro-liberty, and, they all are. Right.
They all are. I mean, look, who founded our country, for God's sakes? Who was the one that started this whole thing? Give me liberty or give me death. And, the thing about people today, they don't understand the kind of world that they were living in at that time. I mean, we've all got this beautiful, comfortable, America. It's got plenty of problems. Believe me, it's not perfect. But do you want to live anywhere else in the world?
Not particularly, not myself anyway. I don't want to speak for everyone, but I know I'm staying for a while. Until the FEMA camps start popping up.
Well, I think you understand my point. They put it all on the line. And they said, we're not going to put up with the tyranny and oppression of the Roman Church and the monarchies of Europe. We want to have, a different country, one that's ruled by the people, of the people, for the people. I mean, all that stuff that sometimes sounds a little over the top. They put it on the line, and if they didn't win, they were all dead. And fortunately for us, they did. But what I find shocking is how little we learn about the role of the Freemasons in the history of our country. Just about all these important people that we read about in our history books for Masons, why don't we know that?
They've built most of the major cities and all the architecture, in America for the most part.
Absolutely. All the early surveyors, architects, engineers, Masons, builders, they were all Masons.
Well, and there were bad secret societies too, because people like George Washington warned about the Illuminati. You have these
JFK,
other things that are out there.
Right.
Mike tried to infiltrate Bilderberg in 2012, and they wouldn't let him on the property. He actually went there and he went to the face of the.
I actually went to Bilderberg in 2012 and got to see our friends Henry Kissinger and Bill Gates and all these great people pulling up. Yeah, it was one of those things that you just had to see, to know for sure that it was going on and happening. And then after that, it's like, it's kind of like you, Scott. It's like once you see it, you do it. You've done the method. You see that it's there. No one can really argue with you at that point. You've seen it for yourself, so, you have your own evidence. It's just, all these other people may not believe you, and that, that might be their mental issues.
They don't, it's not that they don't believe me, I don't think. I think it's they don't want it to be true. They don't want to accept the fact that, what they believe for a long time is a bunch of BS. And, a lot of the ideas that they embraced, it's like, it's like finding out your wife cheated on you. You don't want to believe it, or, something like that that's so shocking and so foreign to your mentality. It just can't even get in because you're so indoctrinated into some other way of thinking. In a way, I kind of understand them, but after a while, can't you just get with the program?
Give the facts.
The facts are the facts.
Yeah, you got to give them a chance. You got to give the facts a chance, and you got to get outside the bubble, get outside your normal paradigm. There's a lot more going on than these. People like to keep themselves in their safe little box. You're right, and as soon as you challenge that, they get aggressive and angry and violent. But you're just providing facts. You're like, hey, look at this. I'm not trying to force it on you. I'm just presenting this, and you're trying to kill me. Right.
Well, you know what though? I don't worry about that crap. I mean, they can call me all the names they want. I mean, I don't give a shit, man. I played football in college and minor leagues for 4 years. I mean, I've had people physically and verbally assault me in every way possible. I mean, these clowns that are attacking me on this stuff, really? Okay, whatever.
How about
I don't worry. I honestly don't worry about it. I could care less.
I wouldn't either.
How about restriction to sites that you wanted to visit, or anything that they've prevented you from seeing? Is there anything out there that you feel like that you've not had a fair chance to investigate because you've been prevented from seeing it?
Well, we always find a different way to do it. I mean, they haven't denied. I mean, they've denied me going on to like Cahokia. The archaeologist said, we don't like the show, so we're not going to let you there. That's impressive. So we flew over, we did LiDAR. Screw them. We found a way to do it. And, the thing is that I'm an easy guy to get along with. I really am. And I mean this when I say this. If an archaeologist or even a lay person, I don't care what your background is, if you come to me with something legitimate, I'll listen and I'll consider it. But if they come to me and say, look, you presented your case on this, but you haven't seen this. And if they come to me with something that is well done, that is factual, and it's conclusive, or if it's a better argument than mine, I'll accept it. I really will. I mean, it's not, I think people think that I have this complex where I have to be right. I mean, I love being right. Who doesn't like being right? But that's not what it's about. I want to get the right answer, and I don't care how I get it. If it's my evidence or somebody else's, I can care less. And by the way, I have all kinds of people who are helping behind the scenes with all these various projects. I'm not doing this all myself. It really takes a village to get to the bottom of a lot of these things, and I don't care where it comes from. And I just want to make sure that I acknowledge people's contributions, give them proper credit, and there's been a number of people that have helped me. I'm just the face that's out there in front of this, but there's an army of people behind us. It's not all me.
Well, that's interesting that you mentioned that. It's the same thing with us here at the Rundown Live. We're supported by our listeners and those that listen to us. I think it's very interesting, though, that much like when Mike and I, we investigate a lot of these conspiracies, and we find that there's a lot of truth to them. And I think you're going to see that with a lot of these ancient legends, that there are, some of them obviously are blown out of proportion, but you're going to see that there is some part or a wedge of truth that you'll be able to expand on and actually piece together enough evidence to give a good, a good argument towards your findings. So,
well, and if somebody can prove me wrong with evidence, I won't take it personally. I'll be glad, and I'll say, you know what? I'll tip my hat to you. I always use football metaphors, and I mean this. During the game, I'll fight like hell, and I'll knock the crap out of you any way I can. I know you're going to do the same to me. And win or lose after the game, I'll buy you a beer and tell you how great you are. Because
just hopefully you won. Hopefully you won, though. That's the only thing.
Well, most of the time I did, but I got my ass handed to me plenty of times. And, they're fighting hard, too. And we all have to go back to our families. We all have our jobs. And, we're all trying to get through life the same way. And there's a time to get after it, and then there's a time to just settle down and have a beer and step away from it.
Well, right. So when you go to sites, do you jam out to the Indiana Jones theme song when you drive everywhere? Or? I'm just kidding.
No, I don't. No, we don't do that. No, the Indiana Jones thing it's.
I see it everywhere.
I know what they're doing. They tried to get me to wear a hat. I said over my dead body. They can see my bald spot. I don't care. I can
Hey,
care.
no,
Season 3, you'll have a whip, right?
The show, though, really, though, the production of the show is great. You know,
It's
just
awesome.
for,
Yeah.
so the guys that I know that you got crews and stuff that work hard. You know, you guys
Yep.
do a really good job. You know, the production, you know, the graphics, everything you guys put together. It's really good. It really is.
The guys that I work with, our crew is absolutely fantastic. They are a fun group. I mean, we have an absolute blast. They're talented as hell, and the guys that do the editing and Andy and Maria Oz, who own Committee Films, are amazing. I mean, they've got vision. They work like nobody works harder than they do, and I am so fortunate to be part of that group. And like I said, the network has been 100% supportive. I mean, I don't know what more I could ask for. I could ask for more money, I suppose. I don't know if I'm kidding. But
Well, you know,
they're amazing, everybody, really.
they let you cover things that are, you know, I assume things that you want to cover. You know, it's not coming from
They're
from them,
controversial.
right?
They gotta be getting
You're the
used.
one that's saying, I want to cover this, so let's get this done, right? So, I mean, it's not like
Well, yeah.
they're not sending
I don't,
you around
I
to
don't
these places.
pick all the subjects.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
pick all the subjects, but I pick a lot of them. And, you know, I mean, let's face it. What comes out of my mouth, I have a say over that.
Right.
So, no, they give me a lot of freedom and, you know, a lot of input into everything that we do. In some cases, I have all the input because it's stuff I've worked on. But there are some of these, you know, topics I don't know anything about. So I rely on them to do a good job to line up, you know, good guests and do a good job of researching to make sure that it's a good, intelligent show that we do. And, you know, so far so good.
Well, you were in Wisconsin recently, weren't you? Lake Mills? Was that Rock Lake Pyramids?
Oh yeah, the rock, the Fuga sub. Oh yeah, that was great.
Yeah, that's right. You had your own personal submarine there. That'd have been cool.
Oh, I missed that. I didn't get to see
Yeah,
that
he
one.
was
Yeah.
going under in a little mini personable, like single person sub.
Anything interesting? I have heard of these because we're in Wisconsin, and you know I have not been there. But anything worth checking out there? Or?
Well, if you want me to be honest,
Obviously, right.
I'm extremely skeptical of that. I'm not going to say that there's nothing there because I haven't scoured the entire lake. I didn't see anything, but we had some difficulty with the sub. So, and you know, some people, you know, banged on us pretty good. They thought it was lame, and to be honest with you, part of that was lame. I didn't have enough time to learn how to use the sub, and so it was difficult. The battery was going in and out. It was kind of a cluster, you know.
Right.
But I did get a chance to go to a couple of the spots that they said this is where it's supposed to be, and I didn't see anything.
Nothing definitive, nothing that made you like say, "Oh, we got to get back here." Right? Exactly.
No, what I saw was glacial stones on the bottom of the lake, which I've seen a billion times because I'm a diver and I've seen it plenty of times. What
And
I
we
saw
have
was,
that in this
was
area,
natural.
right? In this, you know, obviously the Great Lakes here and all that, and you know that's what you do, and that's the reason we respect what you do and your honesty. Something like that, remain skeptical. That doesn't mean everything else is, you know,
I still
just throw it in the trash.
about the rock wall finding, though. That's so bizarre that such a complex structure was built in that kind of way underneath the ground.
Oh yes, I saw the rock wall down south.
There's
I
no
did
way
see
that
that.
isn't
That
made
is
somewhere.
weird. That is weird.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. You know, I don't know what people think, but when I don't say, you know, yes or no, or I think this is genuine, or I think this is bogus, or whatever, unless I feel I have the evidence to say it. The other thing I'm not afraid to say, I don't know. And there have been a couple times where I've said, I don't know. But in the case of the rock wall, I'm 100% certain that's natural. 100%.
Oh, really? So it's just natural phenomenon, nothing crazy. Nobody was fortifying years ago or anything like that.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy cool natural geology. It's a sandite. And the fracturing of the breakup of that dike after it hardened into rock and then broke up is freaking amazing. I mean, you look at that wall and it does look man-made. I'll be the first one to admit that, but it's not.
And then didn't it crumble and things after some of the pieces were excavated? We don't have a lot of time, Scott, so I did want to make sure that you get to plug anything. You got your show, times, your books, anything you want to, your website, all that good stuff.
You're always welcome back on here.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that, guys. Well, I mean, the website is www.hookedx.com, HOOKEDX.com. I also have a blog that, there's other people that have been out there kind of coming after us, and I just decided, hell, I'll do my own blog. And I'm happy to answer questions. I've had some of the nastiest bulldogs come onto my blog, and I just say, look, if you want to sit there and criticize and complain, you sound like an idiot. So grow up and ask me a serious question, or get lost, But I don't edit the posts. I don't not post. If someone wants to use the F word, go ahead. You look like a clown.
It comes with the internet.
Well, they could be government hired trolls. We know that they have that thing called Operation Mockingbird, where they just actually spend millions of taxpayer dollars just paying people to troll and support current ideology.
Discredit. Yeah, we already been there, right?
People, so,
Well, I don't know about that, but if somebody wants to be critical, I don't mind. But ask me a question or put forth something that I can respond to. But if you're just going to complain and bitch and moan, then go somewhere else. It's boring.
This isn't real, right? Come on.
We're happy for you, okay? Exactly. You can criticize. Thank you. Goodbye. I mean, it doesn't push the ball down the field. But the other thing is, we have, I have a bunch of books. They're all on the website. And I don't know what else I got. That's it. And, just watch the show, enjoy it. And if you got something, go ahead and let us know. And if you don't like what we're doing, if you see something where we screwed up, let us know, and we'll fix it if we can.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on and hanging out with us, telling us about the tomb. I mean, we learned stuff today, and I'm sure, if you ever want to come back, tell us about some more stuff. You're more than welcome. What was the website one more time for the listeners so they can check it out?
Yeah, I think they'll get a kick. The website is www.hookedx.com, HOOKEDX.com, and then my blog is ScottWolterAnswers.com.
Awesome. Scott, we really appreciate it. We'll have links to the show, all that stuff. And you know what? You're really doing good work. And, don't worry about the internet trolls. You're going to get that with what we're doing here.
Of course.
It's, you're doing good work.
If they weren't banging on us, I'd be worried.
Well, that means you're in the right direction. Anytime you're in the right direction, there's heavy criticism. It's the road less traveled, and that's the best way to go, if you ask me. So.
And you got a lot of help behind you, so we really appreciate it, Scott. Hopefully we can talk to you again sometime. And everybody, make sure you check out America Unearthed on the History Channel.
And definitely, if you write anything,
guys.
Send it our way. We'd love to read it. If you write anything, send it our way. We'd love to post it on your blog or anything like that. Send something our way. We'd love to read what you have going on.
Yeah, we'll get it out there. We'll make it viral, Scott. So definitely, we appreciate it.
Sounds great. Go there. Oh, I have a Twitter account, too. I guess I have that, too. So I don't know if people want to check that out. I'll answer questions. And anyway, listen, thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it.
It was awesome, man.
You have a good night.
A good night.
Okay. Take care.
Bye. There goes Scott Wolter from America Unearthed on the History Channel. Definitely, interesting conversation. Like I said, we never know where these things are going to go. You know what I mean? We spent a lot of time on what he does, and that's what he does. He dates these stones. He finds out the truth and the facts. Like Kristan said, I told you them pyramids weren't real, bro. What did I tell you? You guys could go back in the archives. Yeah, you go listen for Big P Zone. Kristan's like, we got to take a vacation, go see these pyramids.
We've been talking about going there for like a year already.
And I was like, I don't know about that. And then what's the other one? That light? When I said
the Paulding light.
And it's just the highway light.
Yeah. There's like a street light that goes on and off in the background.
It's like a cell phone tower back in like 1873. Oh, man. But no, seriously, Scott was an awesome interview. That was actually really informative. Like the tomb, for instance, that just happens to have all these, strange burials and things. And,
prominent people.
1980 was discovered. We showed it briefly on the screen. And, it's just, you can't report that because it changes history. And you can't do that because because everything apparently is built on this false paradigm, this false history.
It's the Matrix.
And I wanted to ask about like the Federal Reserve and stuff, but I think that tied into the bloodlines and all that. You know, that's where that control mechanism came from. And I think he was honest with this. So, Kristan, we only got a few minutes left. We're going into the weekend. We only actually have like a minute left. Any final words before I let them know about the other stuff?
Yeah, we want to thank Scott Wolter for coming on our show. Thank you to all our listeners on TuneIn. Download the app to your cell phone. It's free. Android, iTunes, Amazon.com, Windows. Thank you guys out there. Make sure you check out the website, add us on Facebook, and make sure you check out Scott Wolter. He's got awesome information. Check out his blog, check out his books, and make sure if you guys are looking to support the Rundown Live, check out our sponsors, Private Internet Access and My Heirloom
We should
Seeds.
probably thank the History Channel for even letting him come on, because they had to like verify our site to make sure we weren't like crazies. I can't believe they let it through, but you know what?
Well, we've had other people from the
Well, right, I know, and they've been awesome with us, so we do appreciate that, guys. And we'll be back on Monday. And don't forget, Hardcore Harry's coming up next. TruthBroadcastNetwork.com is the home. Death to the New World Order is his show, followed by The Average Liberator with Corey Washington at 11. So, guys, we'll be back on Monday. I'll probably be live tomorrow on Conspiracy Wire after Mark Howitt. It's the weekend. We're out of here, guys. We love you in the chat.
Just don't forget, there is no CFR.
Don't question reality, apparently, either. Because if you do, the Smithsonian will get you.
Well, they're trying to say people who have creative thought nowadays and don't conform have a mental illness, Mike. Maybe we'll cover that tomorrow.
If we are live tomorrow. I'm live tomorrow.
I'm calling in tomorrow.
I'm live tomorrow on Conspiracy Wire. You better check it out at 11 p.m. or some shit. I don't know what time I'm on, yeah. Rundownlive.com.